What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Knives of the Round Table. My name is Marco, and today I'm doing kind of a different video from what I usually do. For the most part, I'm a gear reviewer. I enjoy having knives. I enjoy collecting knives. But I actually enjoy very much maintaining my knives. You know, disassembling them, cleaning them, oiling them, and especially sharpening them. But today, what I'm going to try and show you here is how to disassemble the Mini Slim Pickins, which is a button lock. And my idea is to try and remove and show you how the secondary detent on the Slim Pickins is removed. So I have never done this. So this is going live on camera without me having done this before. So we hope that it goes well. So I'm going to check first what kind of hardware we're looking at here. So a T10 is too big. Let's see, maybe a T8, you think? Let's see. Okay, so it looks like T8 for the pivot. And let's see. For the scales, it looks like it's going to be a little bit smaller than that. So we'll just have to see. So not T10, let's see a T6 for the, no, not T6. Oh, it is T8, huh, okay. All right, so a single one, so that's nice. So what I'm using here is this little kit from Journey Tool Company. So it comes with a set of Weha Torx bits or bits of all kinds. It comes with a little bit of Loctite and some lube, and then this holder, you know, that you can do to set your tool on. So right now we're gonna start the disassembly, and I've never disassembled this one before because it's a little bit strange. You see, there's only the one screw here. This one's, I think, may give us access to disassembling the back of the knife. So let's disassemble the scales here first. Man, these were really loose. Huh, they're long. Okay, so let's get this one out of the way here. It feels really loose, so it feels like it should come out, but it's kind of just I can't really hold it. Oh, there we go. It's coming. Yeah, okay, here we go. So that's one of the scale screws. This is the Slim Pickins. This is the heavy metal. So it has the Damasteel scales. I mean the Damasteel blade. But it has zirconium for the overlays here. So this is heavy, and that's kind of what I like about this knife. That instead of cutting, you know, a lot of times you have G10 or carbon fiber to lighten it up, but I like my knives to have a little bit more heft to them. So the fact that this is zirconium, it's really nice. I like that a lot. I like that a lot about this knife. Okay, so here's the rest of the screws that hold this knife together, and we'll see that looks a little bit smaller. And these are the screws that hold the secondary detent, I believe. We'll check it out here in a second. Let me see. Let me make sure. Yeah, so that is not gonna do it. Let's see a T6. Yeah, it looks like a T6. So we've got a T8 for the pivot that we're gonna need. I usually remove the pivot last, just to keep the kind of the blade in some semblance of control. So let's see. So those are the back spacer screws. And now let's do the pivot. This one you just have to be careful when you remove it, because remember that the button lock is under spring tension, so you don't want just when you open it, just keep your hands kind of around it, just to make sure that the pivot that the spring doesn't just explode on you, and you kind of have to find it halfway across the room. So it looks like it's not going anywhere. Here we go. There it is. There's that spring that I was talking about. Okay, so this is the button lock mechanism. So basically what happens is that when the spring pushes it in, this has a little bit of a taper. So it's like the same taper that you get in a frame lock, right, to engage the blade and have constant contact on it. So that's kind of what you get here, but in a button lock configuration, I guess. So there's your button lock. So here, this is the secondary detent. Okay, so the Slim Pickins has the secondary detent for areas like that have gravity loss, so that prevents that from being illegal in those places. Now where I am, it is legal to have a knife that drops shut and opens with gravity, so I don't need this. Now it has really good action even with this, with a secondary detent, but I've talked to friends and they've told me that the action is even better, more free swinging than it was. And I have a review of this knife, so I'm going to link it in the description, and you can see how the action was prior to me removing the secondary detent. But I actually believe that button locks are some of the most fidgety knives that you can have. And the secondary detent kind of prevents a little bit of that fidget action. Now, what I recommend is that if you're going to remove your detent, you keep it, okay? If you ever want to sell your knife, the person who's buying it is probably going to want, the secondary detent. They might even ask you, hey, can you put it back? So if they do, then you're going to need to. Now, how do I get this out of here? Well, that's interesting. I don't want to really get a blade in there, but I guess I can. Maybe grab a thin one here. So, mini bug out. Let's see. I don't recommend using your blades like this, okay? It's all kinds of bad for the edge. Yeah, that's not working. Let me see what I can try and wedge in there that is very, very thin. A thin piece of paper, maybe. Let's see. So I just grabbed a little piece of cardboard here and see if I can, get in there underneath it. Because all I need is to just kind of be able to sneak under it. Yeah, it's not working. You know what? Let me try to figure it out, and I'll be right back with you. Okay, so we are back, and let me show you what I did. I tried a bunch of different things, including trying to push or trying to get under the detent with a flosser. I tried a bunch of different things, and let me tell you what worked. And basically what I ended up doing is, so this thing was in here, and I came back through the back with a really small, I think this is a T4, maybe a T5, okay? And the T5 is much smaller than the hole, so I pushed against the back of the threads right here, and it just pushed right out. Okay, so that's how I did it. So I think what I would recommend is to get like a wood toothpick maybe, and push the back of this thing, and do it the way I did it, but push through the back. Okay, that's how I would. That's why how I would have removed that. I used the tools that I had, but I don't necessarily recommend pushing against this thing with a metal one. It's fine. I've already checked the thread, so that's okay. But that's how I ended up removing the secondary detent on this thing. Basically, just came back through the back, pushed against it, and removed it. So now we have the task of putting it back together and see if we can manage that. But since it's disassembled, let's just take a moment and let's put some lubrication on this. And usually I like to have my bearings with the cage towards the inside. It's just my preference. I'm sure that, you know, people have their own preference for this. You know, and maybe the Alliance Designs guys know more than I do, but that's my preference. And I get to do with my knife as I please. So let's see what we're gonna do is we're gonna kind of lube it up just a tad bit. There we go. Now we do the other side. We do some. I use this nano oil. I don't have all the different weights and stuff. I think this works pretty well, but I'm not such an expert that I can say, hey, you know, you should be using this weight or that weight. My level of expertise doesn't extend that far, so we put in that. Now what you have to, this one is, it has a little bit of a sequencing that you have to do to get it in. So we're gonna do this, and the blade kind of has to go in at the same time. Oh, I lost my pivot. So I'm holding right now. I'm holding the detent, not the detent, the button lock here underneath, because it has to go on the far side of the blade. At least this bottom portion has to, and the blade has to go on top of it. So you kind of need to kind of get both things in at the same time. Okay, that's kind of what you need to do. So then what do we have? Okay, then we have this kind of, I guess this is the scale, but because of the overlay, kind of feels like a liner, right? So we're gonna go in through here and get it into the pivot, right? Oh, I'm missing a bearing. I am missing a bearing. You know, your knife doesn't work well without this second bearing. So I would highly recommend that you put all of the bearings that came with your knife back into your knife, okay? That's a pro tip for you. So here's your bearing, and then, you know, because they don't want the bearings running on titanium, and I think that works really, really good. That's a very good idea. You have that washer. So now we have it back together. There we go. Came in remarkably easy back together. So now what we're gonna do is just get a tad bit of thread lock into, and usually you should have done the thread lock before putting it together, so you don't have to do this maneuver that I'm doing here, but you know, just a tad bit of thread lock. And then we do, this is a T8, and the reason I'm doing the pivot first is so that, you know, the whole mechanism of the button lock doesn't push out as I'm handling the rest of the knife. So pivot goes back in, and right now I'm not putting a lot of I'm not tightening it all that much right now. All I want is for it to be held together. Okay, now we have to go with our T6s that are the backspacer ones. So let's do this. Just the backspacer screws, get them nice and tight. I don't usually. I've seen Nick Shabazz put Loctite on his scales. On his scale screws. I don't usually do that. I usually just do it on the pivot, where the pivot wants to rotate and it feels the impact of the blade every time it opens and closes. So I do it there, but I don't really do it on the scales. They don't receive as much impact, that they don't receive any rotation, so that's why I don't usually do that. So now we come back with our overlay here. Oh. Let's get it on here. You know, people who disassemble their knives live, you know, I have a newfound respect for them. They, you know, it's crazy that they can do that. Let's see. Well, that's not working. Why is that not working? It's just not in the right location. Yeah, you see it's a little bit offset. Let me try and put the other one first and see if that kind of lines it up for me. See, as you can see, I've never disassembled this knife, and that's part of the enjoyment, right? The discovery of how things work. And just so you know, one of the discoveries that I just made is that these are in fact not T6s, but they are T7s instead. It came out with a T6, but it, you know, remarkably did not go in with a T6. So that was my mistake. Double check your hardware. You don't want to strip any screws, but it is uncontroversially a T7 on this. Yep, there we go. So now we check. So obviously we check. Let's check on the pivot. Okay, that's nice. No blade play, and absolutely drop shutty. And it still flips like a dream. Oh yeah. Yeah, so now you get all of the fidgety looseness that you get from every button lock, and none of the tension from the secondary detent. Now, again, I want to say that it was a good action to begin with, but the looseness that you get, you know, the fluidity that you get from button lock, you know, it just drops completely shut. It's just so nice to do. It is really nice. So there you have it. Disassembly and reassembly, if a little bit painful, and detent removal of the Alliance Designs Mini Slim Pickins. Well, guys, you know, I haven't seen a video dedicated to just removing the secondary detent on this, so hopefully this was helpful to you if you were looking for this. If you did, then like and subscribe. Don't get notified. You know where to find my content if you want to see it. Until I see you at the next one. Take care.